Monday.com AI agents took over my work, and I absolutely love it. Chasing deadlines, writing status reports, updating stakeholders. Agents handle the daily grind now. I stay in the loop only when it matters. Create your own AI agent in minutes on Monday.com.
Hey now. Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Hey now. How you doing, friends? I had a great episode yesterday. If you did not hear the episode for Monday, July the 6th, I think it is one worth checking out, and this one is going to be great too. There are two main topics on this episode of Scott Fox After 9. Yesterday, the Prime Minister announced that Canada is going ahead and buying new subs, but we're going to snub that South Korean bid, and we're going to go with the German bid. That is part of Canada integrating itself much deeper into Europe. Also, a surprise announcement. Yesterday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith announced they want to build a pipeline. Now, if that sounds familiar, don't worry, I'm going to tell you where that feeling of deja vu is coming from on this episode. So stick around. I'm going to tell you a whole bunch of stuff that you may not have seen on the news. In fact, I'm pretty confident you didn't see it on the news because, well, hey, listen, they don't give you the whole story. They give you their version of the story, and that's important to remember. So in this episode, you're going to get the context, and you're going to hear directly from the Prime Minister, Doug Ford, and Danielle Smith. Before I get too far into it, two things. Number one, there's going to be no episode tomorrow. July the 8th is an important day for me, so I will not be doing an After 9 tomorrow, but there will be 4 episodes this week. Check back in on Thursday for a new episode. And the other thing is, I want to welcome a new sponsor. A new sponsor on Scott Fox After 9. Welcome to thecaulkingstore.com. A reminder to those who are looking for quality sealants. Good caulk is hard to find. The big box stores may be bigger, but bigger is not always better. And you get the wrong sealant, which is expensive. The repair costs become expensive, and expensive is expensive. So here's the thing. The Caulking Store is going to help you find the right professional grade sealant for less. They carry top brands like Pecora, Tremco, Suprema, Nuco, and more. I hope I said those right. The Caulking Store also carries the right tools for the job, but not just any tools, nothing but the top performance brands from Ferrinox, a Canadian tool manufacturer, and more. Whether you're a master builder, a contractor, or a DIY person, you will get reliable advice from knowledgeable people, not someone in an apron trying to read the label for the very first time. And I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. They are Canadian owned and operated, satisfaction sealed, and the lowest price guaranteed. They also offer contractor pricing, a senior's discount, and fast and reliable delivery. Again, they're the Caulking Store. They're in Mississauga at the border of Etobicoke and conveniently off Renforth and the 401. Shop online at thecaulkingstore.com. And remember, good caulk is hard to find, or it was until they showed up. So shout out to everybody at the Caulking Store. They've been great to deal with, and they're going to be bringing you certain select episodes of Scott Fox After 9. Now let's get to yesterday's announcement from the Prime Minister.
The assumptions that had shaped decades of Canadian defense and foreign policy have been upended. Put another way, history is back with a vengeance. We face numerous and growing threats, from incursions in our Arctic to attacks in our cyberspace. The nature of warfare is changing rapidly, driven by a proliferation of drones, autonomous systems, hypersonic missiles, to name a few. The world's changed. Canada must change with it. Nowhere is that more evident than on our seas and in our Arctic.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to let the Prime Minister finish in just a sec, but I want to point out most of those things that he just talked about, a submarine is not going to fix anyway. But let's get back to it.
Our Arctic is becoming integral to the security of North America and to the security of NATO's western flank. Our frozen seas are increasingly open, bringing new threats and opportunities. Commercial vessels can increasingly transit our waters, shortening the journeys between continents, connecting us to the world's largest markets. Canada's allies are relying on our resources, including critical minerals, to secure their supply chains. More menacingly, authoritarian regimes are increasingly assertive. The burdens within our traditional alliances are shifting. And middle powers such as Canada are seeking greater strategic autonomy through partnerships amongst the like-minded. We must meet both the realities of a changing climate and that new geopolitical landscape.
He doesn't want to deal with the Americans. He's on his way after this news conference to the G7 summit in Turkey, where he's going to see President Trump. And there he goes again, dropping the middle power line, talking about how alliances have shifted. The responsibility is Canada's to defend the Arctic now. And hey, that's great. Thank you to the Americans for all that they did. I guess we got it from here. Actually, we won't have it for at least 10 years, and we're only getting 10 subs, and they're not all coming at once, by the way. I'm really not sure that Canada needs to spend $100 billion on submarines. Like, do we have enough of a regular Navy fleet to begin with? Before we start going under the water, do we have enough boats above it? And you know, is this really where our money could be best spent? I fully agree with meeting our NATO spending targets. I fully agree with being an active participant in NATO. I'm just not sure why Canada's contribution is going to be submarines when we have so many other needs.
The sovereignty of our country, bounded by 3 oceans and the world's longest coastline, depends on our maritime capabilities. And I want to salute the women and men of Canada's Navy for leading that. Thank you. We need to give them the right equipment, the right tools, the right capacities to do their jobs.
Absolutely we do. Not exactly a warm, enthusiastic response, though, from the many members of the Navy who were behind the Prime Minister for this. Ay. All right, well, let's get to the announcement here.
Now, in the end, this decision was about choosing the absolute best platform and partnership to meet Canada's combined strategic, security, and economic interests. These are amongst the most advanced submarines ever built. The fuel cell air-independent propulsion system allows for more than 40 days fully submerged in near total silence. Combined with purpose-built combat capabilities, lithium-ion batteries for speed and rapid recharge, and unparalleled endurance under the ice, the TKMS delivers exceptional strength, stealth, and staying power. The TKMS platform is optimized for Arctic waters, and it's fully NATO interoperable, allowing it to communicate seamlessly, to share intelligence, and to carry out joint missions. The submarine is proven and capable. It's widely used by our allies. In fact, TKMS provides submarines to over 1/3 of the NATO alliance and is the leading submarine provider to navies around the world. And the type we're moving to purchase, the type 212 CD. Is that 212 or 212? 212. Okay, let's roll tape. Let's redo. Type 212 CD sub will operate seamlessly alongside our NATO partners, sharing training, maintenance, parts, technology, and even crews throughout their service lives. In addition, TKMS has offered to reallocate boats from the German and Norwegian orders, allowing for early delivery of the first 4 submarines by 2034.
Okay, so in 8 years, we're going to have 4 subs and then 6 more coming after that. It's $100 billion. What would you do if you were in charge of Canada right now and you looked at all the different threats? You look at the threat coming from Russia and from China and from other bad actors around the world. Is submarines the best way to repel that threat, or would we be more of a force if we had more fighter planes, more drones, an aircraft carrier, maybe? Hey, would it make more sense to have more regular, traditional ships as opposed to submarines? I don't know that subs should be first on our list. And you know what? Nothing against the Germans. This sounds like a fine submarine. I'm sure it's great. But do we need it, and do we need it right now? Is that our top priority? Let's get to some of the Q&A with the Prime Minister.
Hi, Mr. Prime Minister. I'm Lindsay Jones from the Globe and Mail. In Korea, you boarded an actual completed version of the submarine Hanwha Ocean was offering to Canada. In Germany, they gave you a small model of what they're offering. What did TKMS Germany promise in terms of delivery schedule for all 12 submarines? And is there not a considerable risk of Canada having almost no submarine capability until the late 2030s and not having a full fleet of 12 or more for more than 25 years, given there is no German submarine built or tested? TKMS has limited shipyard capacity, and these development programs always go later over budget.
Thank you. First off, thank you for your question. I'd refer back to several things. First, just for clarity, we will enter into negotiations. The Defense Investment Agency will enter into negotiations for up to 12 submarines. That's the first aspect, just to be clear. Secondly, the German government, the Norwegian government, have offered, and this works, to make available some of their slots in the production of these submarines so that we can receive submarines earlier. So we will receive submarines earlier, as I referenced in my remarks, and you'll see in the backgrounder. The expectation is we'd have 4 submarines by 2034. Recall that the original timeline for this procurement was 5 years from now. So we're making a decision today. We're talking about getting the submarines on that timeline. And I'd make one other point, which is that this is a platform, a consortium that provides a third of the submarines to NATO. It's the largest provider of submarines effectively in the world, but certainly relevant, is a third of the submarines to NATO. So all of those aspects in terms of delivery capacity, the ability for that to happen in accordance with the specs of the Royal Navy, obviously taken directly into account, and it's very robust, and we're very pleased with that.
That was a strange answer. And you know what? The question from, I believe that was the Globe and Mail, but I might be mistaken. It was relevant. We're not going to have a submarine fleet until the late 2030s. They say we'll get 4 of them by 2034. That's still 8 years away. I just feel like we don't have $100 billion to spend on this right now. That's my biggest concern here. The Prime Minister, I don't know why he strung along that South Korean company. He made the point that part of the reason we're buying these subs is because they're interoperable with our NATO allies. Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. If the South Korean ones are not interoperable with our NATO allies, then they're off the table. It shouldn't even be considered. Why did we string them along and let them pay Peter Mansbridge all that money to do endorsements for them and let them buy all that TV time to promote their sub, only to screw them in the end and say we're going to go with the German bid? I feel like this wasn't handled the best it could have been handled.
And I'm going to say as well, I'm going to take the opportunity, as was the competing bid, if I can call the Hanwha Ocean bid the competing bid, it was also very strong, and we were blessed with 2 strong bids, and we've got made a determination of the best for Canada in all respects.
Follow up. Okay, and to follow up, are you not worried about a totally European focus for our international efforts and setting up a similar reliance with Europe like we've had with the U.S.? Did an Asian firm ever really have a chance to win this? And is this a signal that Canada is walking away from its Indo-Pacific strategy?
Absolutely not. It's absolutely not a symbol of the last point. We're very committed to the Indo-Pacific strategy, consistent with my meeting with President Marcos last week. I will be at ASEAN and APEC later this year. I spoke with President Lee of Korea over the course of the weekend. There are a series of other initiatives Canada and Korea are pursuing that build our economic resilience and our security footprint as one very important example. So, and I would remind as well that we are engaged intensively in trade negotiations with India, and Prime Minister Modi and I met recently, reconfirmed our intention to complete those negotiations by the end of this year. I can give you more examples, but there's a lineup behind you. Thank you.
Very windy there where the Prime Minister is speaking, right on the Halifax Harbor there. Hey, I don't know why this South Korean company got screwed over here. It seems to me the specs are the specs. And if we have certain specs and the South Korean company couldn't meet it, we should have told them right then and there. Sorry, it's not going to work out. I want to switch gears here now. That's the announcement from the Prime Minister. It's going to cost us $100 billion, and I don't know where that money is going to come from. Frankly, I just don't know. But I want to get on to another announcement that I was not expecting yesterday when Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and Ontario Premier Doug Ford came out to announce an Alberta-Ontario pipeline. Here is Premier Smith.
But I have also said many times that Alberta's aim is to double our oil production in the next 10 to 15 years and to diversify our export markets. And that means not only reaching global customers, but ensuring Canadians can benefit from our resources here at home. All Canadians deserve a stable, secure, and reliable energy supply. Alberta is ready to provide that stability and be the heart of a more energy sovereign and economically resilient Canada. And that vision is already taking shape as we work to make up for a lost decade of anti-energy policies from the previous federal administration in Ottawa. After signing an agreement last year to work together with Alberta and Saskatchewan to build new pipelines through an economic corridor from Alberta to Ontario, the government of Ontario is here today to unveil a potential route for a new 3,300-kilometre oil pipeline from Hardisty, Alberta to Sarnia, Ontario. Known as the Northern Shield Energy Corridor, this project would pave the way for Alberta's barrier-free access to domestic refineries and markets in eastern Canada. A new east-west pipeline would move an additional 500,000 barrels of Alberta oil per day, with the potential for a future expansion of up to 800,000 barrels per day. Energy security is essential for all countries, as we all know, and this new corridor will include the concept of a strategic petroleum reserve, or SPR, that will store vital Alberta oil reserves in the Sarnia refinery area to ensure key refined products like diesel, jet fuel, and gasoline are uninterrupted. There is also an opportunity to eventually use this corridor to reach the Atlantic Ocean, which would allow Alberta to provide reliable energy to our nation's European allies. This project will make Canada stronger. By connecting Alberta's energy with Canadian refineries and European markets, we can create jobs, grow our economy, and make the most out of the world-class resources that we've been blessed with. Now that a potential route has been identified, the Government of Ontario is commencing work to estimate costs and examine commercial models and related development opportunities for the energy corridor. This pipeline is another signal to investors that Canada is once again open for business and the best country on earth from which to secure a reliable source of energy.
Great words there from Premier Smith. We're building a pipeline from Alberta to Ontario. Not just Ontario, southwest Ontario, right down in Sarnia. Hey, that's great. We're going to build some refinery capacity, I would hope, so we can refine our own oil and turn it into gas, possibly ship that around the world. That would be great, I hope. Apparently, we're going to have a strategic petroleum reserve. That's something that I think every other country has, and we don't. We don't have a place to have oil just on reserve in case we ever need it, let alone refined gas. I think this is great. What a wonderful proposal. But I've got some issues with this, and I'm going to get to that coming up in just a sec.
Monday, AI agents took over my work. And I absolutely love it. Chasing deadlines, writing status reports, updating stakeholders. Agents handle the daily grind now. They live inside Monday.com, so they see the full picture. My work, my team, the whole company. And I don't have to worry about the data. It's safe, which means I'm free to focus on the big stuff, knowing everything runs smoothly in the background. It's completely shifted the way we work. Create your own AI agent in minutes on Monday.com.
First off, let's hear the rest of the announcement from Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
Exactly 1 year ago, Premier Smith and I signed a historic agreement that laid out a plan to build new energy and trade infrastructure to move Western oil and gas to refineries in southern Ontario and send Ontario's critical minerals to new ports in Western Canada, helping to build a true end-to-end critical mineral and energy supply chain. Our government was elected with a mandate to build the most competitive, most resilient, the most self-reliant economy in the G7. We're delivering on our mandate by staying laser-focused on what we can control here at home. We're cutting red tape to a tune of $1.3 billion, streamlining approvals, leading a wholesale reform of government permitting, and lowering taxes and fees. I always say I've never raised a tax. We reduced them by $12 billion. I will never, ever raise a tax. We're diversifying our trading partners, breaking down internal trade barriers, and training the next generation of workers for the jobs of the future.
Here's my issue with this, friends. I don't hate the idea. In fact, I like the idea. We need to do this as a country. We need to get Alberta oil out to different places. And in an ideal world, it would be great to take a pipeline right out to the East Coast and be able to ship all of that oil over to Europe or wherever it needs to go. For now, it's going to go to southwestern Ontario. That's a start. Hopefully, there's a stop somewhere along Lake Ontario where we can build a deep water port and ship some of the oil via tanker up the St. Lawrence and out to other markets. That would be a great start. So hopefully, they've thought of that. The issue I have with this is it's coming from Danielle Smith and Doug Ford. Why is that an issue? I like both of them individually. But I was watching July the 7th, 2025, exactly 1 year ago today. Listen to this.
Ontario, I think, knows that with Line 5 right now, it goes through Michigan to feed Sarnia, and that is puts them in a precarious position. The governor of Michigan has been trying to shut that pipeline down for years. And so we have always felt that having a Made in Canada solution with a pipeline option going to not only Ontario and Quebec, it just makes sense from an energy security point of view. And the world changed in November. And I think Canadians understand that we've got to start acting like a country. We've got to start supporting each other. And I think that is the prevailing sentiment in the country. But I'll let Premier Ford speak for his own people.
Well, thank you, Premier Smith. Premier Smith was bang on. We have the governor of Michigan constantly threatening to close down the pipeline. Do you know the disaster that would create in Ontario? It would basically shut down Pearson International Airport, largest airport in the country. Prices would go through the roof. I'm tired of relying on the United States. And let's make no mistake about it. I love the U.S. I love the American people. But there's one person that's causing a problem right now, and that's President Trump. We want to move forward. We want to build the AMCAN fortress. But the days of relying on the United States 100%, they're done. They're gone. We're going to start being reliant and self-reliant on each other. We have the strongest. We're an economic powerhouse in Canada. We're going to continue growing, free trade being one within all the provinces. That will add over $200 billion to our economy, anywhere up to 6% of our GDP. We have to start diversifying our trade right across the world. People would love great Alberta oil, that love products, critical minerals from Ontario. That's what we start doing, and stop being reliant on our neighbors to the south, because there's uncertainty right now and it's hurting our country.
That was a year ago today. A year ago today, again at the Calgary Stampede, Doug Ford and Danielle Smith out there talking about, number one, building a pipeline from Alberta to Ontario. They also talked about how we can't rely on the Americans. We can't be held hostage by the Americans. So this has got to be 100% in Canada. Now, that's the longer route, 3,300 kilometers of pipeline here. But we have to do that because Canada has to retain our sovereignty, and Canada has to keep that money in Canada. It's got to be for Canadians and selling it out to the rest of the world. That's the whole point of this pipeline. Great. But again, it was a year ago. A year ago today. That was what Doug Ford and Danielle Smith were saying. What's happened in a year? They've chose a route. That's it. In a year, they made a decision. And as you heard Premier Smith say earlier in this episode, now that they've picked a route, Ontario is going to begin a feasibility study. Ontario's already spent $11 million, and we don't even have the feasibility study done. Listen, I want to see this pipeline built. I think Smith and Ford are on the right track. I don't know if Manitoba is going to play ball, though. And you know what? If they don't, well, we're going to have to deal with Manitoba, because this needs to be considered in Canada's national interest, and we've got to do this. But God, could we please pick up the pace? A year ago, they said they wanted to do this. Now they're coming back to say, we'll begin the feasibility study. Are you kidding me? How much did you get done in a year? Give me a year and I can get just about anything done. Say, Scott, I need you to build me a house. Okay, give me a year and I can probably build you a house. There's nothing that can't get done in a year. And these people are just now getting around to doing the feasibility study? You also heard right at the end of that clip, Doug Ford talking about the need to take down the interprovincial trade barriers. In fact, when they were at that news conference, July 7th, 2025, they signed another MOU to make it easier to send alcohol back and forth between Alberta and Ontario. That's not happening. There's still interprovincial trade barriers that exist. How the hell are we going to get a pipeline built when these guys can't even agree to sell booze tariff-free between provinces? It's been a year, and that's all they've got done. It's stunning. I don't understand what else to say. I mean, I'm shocked that they came out here and bragged about this like it was some sort of an accomplishment. They should have come out and said, hey, listen, we didn't understand how important it was to Canadians that we get this done. We wasted a year screwing around, scribbling on a map. Now we're going to begin the feasibility study. They should apologize. You should have come out there yesterday to announce this pipeline with a lot more concrete information than we're going to begin the feasibility study. Have you begun Indigenous consultation? Have you found a private proponent for this? Is anything done? Have you pre-ordered the Canadian steel that we're going to need to build the pipeline? Is anything done? Or are you guys just doing photo ops? Because you know what? That's what it seems like. This is very reminiscent of Justin Trudeau. All announcement, no action. A year. The trade barriers are still in place, and they're just now getting around to a feasibility study. Hey, listen, if I'm wrong, and this pipeline does get built in short order, and it starts serving Canadians, I will apologize personally to Doug Ford and Danielle Smith. But right now, after I just re-listened to their announcement from a year ago, and this is where we're at now, it doesn't seem like this is going to get done. It doesn't seem like there's the will to get this done, which is scary. We've got to move quickly here. I don't understand what these politicians don't understand. Move heaven and earth. Drop whatever's on your plate and work on this. Doug Ford, several times, including in the one from a year ago, talked about the need to move Ontario's critical minerals across Canada. Is this in some way a two-way pipeline? How does the critical minerals factor in with this pipeline? The pipeline is just for oil. What is the plan for critical minerals? It's been a year. We need more. Frankly, this is unacceptable. This is not the speed people are expecting. Right idea. Absolutely. Do I hope it gets done? You bet your butt. Do I even like the route? Yeah, seems fine to me. Get building the goddamn thing. Let's go. What is the holdup? Is it the Prime Minister? Is he slowing this down? Have you run into some sort of regulatory hurdle that you can't overcome? What is the issue? Get it done. Shovels in the ground. Don't tell me you waited a year to begin the feasibility study.
G'day, Emma Graney with the Globe and Mail. First question off the bat, I mean, who are you planning, and this is probably for Premier Ford when he gets his breath back.
Yeah,
who are you planning is going to pay for this multi-billion dollar project? Are you thinking private? Are you thinking public? Do you have any companies in mind?
Well, we'll look up both. That's why we're doing the feasibility study. We'll reach out to the private sector, but we won't hesitate to do what the government of Canada and Alberta's doing. So let's take a look at all options, and once we have an answer and we'll have this done by the end of the year, then we'll be able to give you a straighter answer.
Another year. Another year is going to go by before we even know if we're doing this. What the hell are these guys doing? Alberta and Ontario each have an energy minister. I don't know who that is in Alberta, but I know that in Ontario it is a very competent individual in Stephen Lecce. Maybe the premier should get out of the way and let them figure it out. I know Lecce is competent. He'll get it done pretty quick. What the hell is taking so long? Another year until we know the results of the feasibility study. And this one apparently is going to be financed by the taxpayers as well. $44 billion for the one that just got announced the other day from Alberta to the West Coast, to Vancouver. How much is this one going to cost? It's like twice as far, at least. Man, oh man, we got to be further along here. Again, I love it. Danielle Smith and Doug Ford working together, build a pipeline from Alberta to Ontario, and once the oil's in Ontario, we can ship it anywhere through the St. Lawrence and across the Atlantic. That is great news. This is the right idea. Financing it with taxpayer dollars, I know we're not all going to agree on that. Maybe it should belong to the Canadian people. Maybe the taxpayers should finance it. Except we're broke, and they just took a year to decide to get to the feasibility study. So maybe that's not a factor anyway. I mean, we could be completely broke by the time this thing ever gets built.
So you're open. Sorry, Premier. Premier Smith. Sorry.
Well, just see the thing to remember about pipelines is they're an excellent investment. That's why we have underwritten pipeline purchases and an equity stake for First Nations, because they are revenue generating projects, and so ultimately who pays for them is the people who use them, the shippers. They pay through tolls, and we've already seen that with the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Yeah, the federal government did front the money, but they're now earning $1.2 billion per year to pay it back, and that's why it's a bit of a different type of infrastructure question than whether you're building public infrastructure, because it is a revenue generating business. And so I'm looking forward. I always hope that we can have private partners come forward on this, because that also allows us to have the market discipline. But I'm grateful that Premier Ford is willing to look at all the options.
Okay, I mean, not even apologetically. Yeah, we're just going to spend taxpayer money on it. A quick math there, based on what Danielle Smith just said. They make about $1.2 billion per year from these pipelines, the Canadian government. But if we're spending $44 billion, does that mean it's going to take, 40 years to get our money back before we start becoming profitable? I'd like to know a little bit more about that. Frankly, every dollar is important, especially when they're taxpayer dollars. We've really got to understand where our money is going and really assess whether or not that's the best use of money. Where is the private sector? If this is that good an investment, as Premier Smith just suggested, I would think the private sector would be falling all over themselves to get involved in this. When are they going to put up some capital? When are they going to invest in this pipeline? When are they going to help create Canada Strong? Why does everything have to be financed by the taxpayer?
I do have a follow-up to clarify. You're open to it being paid for by taxpayer dollars?
Well, we're going to do that feasibility study, and then we'll be able to go from there. But I think it's a great investment, no matter if it's the government that will get a good ROI over a certain period of time. I always prefer looking at the private sector investing, and I think it's going to be an incredible project. Folks, this is a historic announcement that no one would ever think in 100 years this would be done, but with a great leadership, Premier Smith, we're able to get this agreement moving forward, and it's going to benefit everyone. It's going to benefit Ontarians, Albertans, and most importantly, everyone from coast to coast to coast. So that's what we're focused on. It's going to create thousands and thousands of great paying jobs, and we have to focus on our economy. We have to make sure we're self-reliant, self-sufficient on everything, no matter if it's great Alberta oil coming to Ontario or critical minerals being shipped out west and around the world, or great nuclear capabilities. Folks, we are an economic powerhouse around the world, and now we have to unleash that powerhouse. Make sure that everyone in the world, we can ship Alberta's oil, Ontario's nuclear, and the critical minerals. Not to mention our good friend Scott Moe, that he had a run. I love the guy. Look at potash. Look at uranium that he's delivering. So it's a Team Canada approach, and we need to make sure that we get government out of the way, support when we can, but let's start moving. This is a race first out of the gate, basically. And Team Canada plans on making sure we're first out of the gate.
First out of the gate? It took you a year to agree to do a feasibility study. What I played for you earlier was from July 7th, 2025. It's almost the same speech. You know, I applaud the sentiment coming from Doug Ford. We got to get moving here. Maybe you got to get moving. A year ago, you said you were going to do this, and almost nothing has changed, except you picked a route. Now you're getting along to the feasibility study. That's going to take another year. When will shovels be in the ground? When will shovels be in the ground? When will oil be flowing through that pipeline? You know, Doug Ford just said it. We got to get government out of the way. Maybe government's the problem.
And my follow-up here, and speaking of Team Canada, have you spoken with Premier Carney about this? How does he feel about it? And how do you envisage a kind of Arctic gateway situation? Because that was going to go kind of through the north, and this is very much south, so it would make that a lot more expensive.
Well, I think the world of Premier Carney, I've said it 100 times, I think the guy's a champion. He has to consult a little more with his folks in Manitoba, but we'll work something out, and I'm 100% behind putting a pipeline up to Churchill and getting an icebreaker and start delivering it around the world so we can continue to be an energy powerhouse.
Okay, so what does Premier Carney think? Did they have a conversation about it? What was his response? Did he say, I'm in favor, but I need to do more consultation? That wasn't really an answer. We talk a lot about Team Canada. Okay, well, what does Team Canada think? Are all of the premiers in on this with the exception of Manitoba? How is that? That's a good start. We need to know a lot more here, and frankly, we got to get moving a lot faster.
Fargo with the Calgary Herald. A twofold question for you, Premier Ford. First off, what are the next steps and the timelines? And then secondly, if everything went according to your plans, how quickly might you be able to get this pipeline built?
Well, first of all, we're communicating with 77 Indigenous communities, which play an absolute critical role in this, and we're going to do this feasibility study. We'll be back out before the end of this year, and then we'll be able to roll it out. We've already put a plan together where the pipeline, we've been actually working on this for over the last year, and we have some real experts in the province that put a pipelined route all the way through Ontario, from Alberta through Manitoba and Saskatchewan, with the approval of obviously Saskatchewan, Manitoba.
I'm sorry, do you have a timeline on when it might actually be built?
I'll have a better idea once we do this feasibility study, but we aren't going to hold back. We're going to go full steam ahead. We have great steel companies in Ontario, and I understand so does Saskatchewan, so does Manitoba. So we're all going to pitch in, but we have to make sure it's Canadian steel.
No timeline. Won't even know until the feasibility study's done. This started a year ago, and this is where we're at. Doug insists work has been done. What work? You put up a map. Somebody drew a line from Alberta to Ontario and said, yeah, this is where it's going to go. Now, don't get me wrong. I assume that there was some work put into that. You've got to look to make sure you're not going through sensitive areas, make sure you're not going over water or through mountains and things like that. Understood, totally. That took a year? Are you kidding me? A year. We've got to move faster here.
And in follow-up here for Premier Smith. Premier, you've got already in the works 1.2 million barrels a day with some of the expansions that have already been announced. Then you've got an additional 1 million barrel a day pipeline that would go to the West Coast if it gets built. Now you're talking about an additional 500 to 800,000 barrels a day on top of that. How is the industry going to fill it? And do you think there's actually going to be a demand for this much capacity?
Well, I think we have to look at the time frame. I mean, I've said that we wanted to double oil and gas production over 10 to 15 years. And so when you think of when I made that promise, we were at 3.7 million barrels per day in production. We're at 5 million barrels per day right now. If you look at all of the projects that had at previous points been approved and gone through permitting, but stopped because we didn't have pipeline access, that comes up to about 2 million barrels a day right there. I've talked to a number of different companies already. Every time I meet a producer, I say, what is your current production and how quickly could you expand? And there's some examples I could give you. So I asked that question to Imperial, and they said they have 450,000 in production. They have the capacity to go to 900,000. I asked the question, you look at Blackrod as well. They launched with 37,000 greenfield, and for SAGD, they have the ability to go up to 80,000. Talked to another oil sands producer. They said that they have a 300,000 site, could go up to 700,000. So those are only three companies. So I think that if you look at how we stage it, if we get the incentives right and we get the environment right to do new greenfield development over 10 to 15 years, I have absolute confidence that we'll be able to do it. Remember, we are one of the largest reserves on the planet. We've got 177 billion barrels of recoverable reserves at today's technology. We've got 1.8 trillion barrels of oil in place. So
listening to that, it's still shocking to me that we did this to ourselves and that we had a keep it in the ground philosophy for as long as we did under Justin Trudeau. Nuts.
Hi, Rick Sarley, CBC News. Are you planning to send this project to the Major Projects Office?
Yeah, we're we're talking to the major projects office and had a meeting yesterday. Don's an extremely brave person. Oh my goodness. And we just hit it off when we had a chat. So we're going to be working hand in hand with her office.
And is there a potential timeline on that?
We're doing it right now, actually. We're working alongside with them. So we're going to keep digging deep and crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and making sure it's a feasible project, which we believe it will be. We have to be self-sufficient. We can't rely on anyone else. We have all the tools in the toolbox right across our country. Let's unleash those, our economic strength and create more. This is all about creating Canadian jobs and Canadian families and putting people.
Thanks. Richard Warnica from the Toronto Star. Premier Ford, you said back in May that Premier Smith was putting an independence question on the ballot to protect her 30% base. Have you two spoken about the referendum?
Let me talk about that. I think the world of Premier Smith, first of all. And we're focused on a pipeline. I know, let me cut to the chase here. The previous federal government, not this one, the previous federal government treated Alberta like garbage, like terrible. I've never seen anything as bad as that. So I know that Premier Smith wants a proud, sovereign Alberta, part of Canada. And again, we're there to support her. It's Team Canada. I'll do anything we can. But thank you for that question. Now, since it's a tradition, I have a new Ford Nation belt. I'm not.
Yeah, no. Premier Ford, he did call out Danielle Smith. He was quite angry when he did it too. I don't know why he completely tried to walk back what he was saying. Danielle Smith is calling this referendum to appease 30% of her base. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Alberta sovereignty. Doug Ford dipped his toe in the water. Yeah, the previous government did treat Alberta terribly. Doug Ford wasn't acknowledging that back then when he was taking pot shots at Danielle Smith.
I see my follow-up was for Premier Ford. We saw pictures of you campaigning at the Calgary Stampede. Are you trying to shore up support to challenge Pierre Poilievre for the next Conservative Party leader?
Can I borrow that line, that neutral question? I'm going to use it with the Toronto media. This is like a church picnic compared to the Toronto media. But anyways, I wasn't campaigning. People asked for pictures, so I took pictures. There was a lot of pictures, I'll tell you that. But I love the people of Alberta. We share the same values. And we just have a great relationship with the Premier and the folks here in Alberta. I love it here, actually.
Thank you. We have time for 1 minute.
Okay, so he's not going to admit it. At some point, can everybody just put their cards on the table? You know, there's a lot of people working in the shadows for Doug Ford to try and get Doug Ford into the Prime Minister's office. They want Pierre gone because they want Doug Ford to be their guy. Doug Ford has federal ambitions. He wants to be the Prime Minister. He's been told by his Liberal friends, Carney, Freeland, LeBlanc, you name it. They've all told him, you should be the leader. You should be the Conservative candidate. You should run for Prime Minister. They want to run against Doug Ford. Why doesn't Doug just come out and say it? Friends, that's going to do it for me. Again, I am not doing an episode tomorrow. July the 8th is an important day on my calendar, so I will be observing a round of golf. You have yourselves a great one. New episode is coming out on Thursday. I'll leave you now with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now.
Hey now. Oh.